Okay, hello everyone. I thought about recording something. Something came to mind. I was like, I gotta say this. And to begin officially, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. An idea occurred to me just to tell you from what kind of perspective I'm giving this talk. I'm in Dubai right now. I'm sitting on these stairs, like outside of my apartment, just like staring at things with like this small shopping bag, like grocery shopping bag beside me. And I was listening to something. I had like my phone playing music, and I kind of placed it near this, what do you call it? This stone step, so, you know, it boosts the bass. But anyways, on a serious note, yeah, I was just looking at the moment right now, and I was looking at human beings, and then this line of thought, you know, like if you treat your, let's say, thoughts or the content of what I call your inner realms as code, it's like, yo, I just saw some code, some new code. And pretty much it occurred to me, first of all, I am a Muslim futurist. I believe that there's a system admin to this reality beyond the world room. But I was also thinking about, all right, man, like 13.8 billion years for the whole universal development, 4.5 billion years from the planetary development, like what is it, like 200,000 years of human civilization development. But pretty much I was just wondering about like all this evolution, let's say 4.5 billion years from the start of the planet. Um, and I was just wondering, I was just looking at reality, and I was like, wait a minute. If I was like, let me say it this way, I had an economical kind of view, a kind of like, all right, man, try to use resources as much as possible view. And then I was like, okay, like how rare are eyes? Okay, like human eyes. And I'm saying this in the sense of like biological evolution starting from underneath the water. Actually, our eyes evolved under the water from an evolutionary perspective. From a theological perspective, they were all created. Everything was created at once, instantly. However, from an evolutionary perspective, I'm like, all right, it took let's say it took a long time, let's say 4.5 billion years for like human beings to kind of like evolutionarily end up like this, from like the earliest cell responding to light to, I don't know, the complexity of what kind of beings we are now. So pretty much the idea was that I'm like, the human eyes, like the fact that they're like a camera is very rare. And I was, of course, again, God cannot be humanized, but the point I'm trying to make here is like, I think there's a genius to the design of this reality, and I also believe there's an efficiency here. And I was like, in a hypothetical situation, nothing equivalent to the system admin ever at all. The system admin is beyond this world room. But I was just thinking, okay, if I created this video game, right, and I created, let's say, characters, or I gave another example in previous talks, actually, I'll use that. I was like, all right, man, let's say I'm some genius, like, inventor, and, I don't know, I invent, like, these next-level androids, and I want to do I want to conduct an experiment, right? And I put these androids, let's say a mother android, a father android, a son android, and a daughter android. This is like the example I've used in previous lectures. And I would put them in, let's say, some house, and then close the walls and everything, and just turn these androids on. Now, if I didn't want to put surveillance cameras, let's say I did put in surveillance cameras and the androids couldn't find out, but another way I would put the surveillance cameras would be in the android's eyes. Do you know? That means if I'm like this inventor in another room, I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna create a screen where everything the android sees, I see. Now, of course, to be honest, I don't want to say this as in the sense of I'm like making metaphysical claims, because something beautiful about being Muslim is the fact that we don't know, and that there's a higher power beyond the limitations of human knowledge. There's a beauty to that. Do you know? There's in actuality, there's a peace to that too. You know, a sort of peace that arrives. But anyways, what occurred to me was pretty much, I'm like, what is looking through my eyes, and why would I just like it just be me? Do you know what I mean? That means imagine it's not just me looking through a screen and looking at the android's eyes. It's like me and a team of like inventors and technologists and whatever, right? Engineers, right? And we're all looking at this screen. So I thought of like utility. Okay, this is a very strange argument, but I'm saying, could our biological sight be a sort of camera that it's not just humans that are looking through it, it could be moderators are looking through it. Okay? Because to me it's very strange that God truly knows everything. God knows everything, only God. God is omnipotent. But all the mods and everything else that God's created is not all knowing, right? And then there's this view of like, okay, there's a counter force, there's an actual force. The original force is God, and God created man, and the counter force that is going against God, in some sense denying God's greatness as a sin, is in some sense Shaitan, right? Shaitan is, so before the fallen, in Christianity, I guess they say the fallen angel, but in Islam, for example, in Christianity, I believe there's Lucifer, and then Lucifer, after it's demoted into Shaitan, right? Now, when it comes to, and in Islam, it's Iblis, and in Christianity, it's Lucifer that this demotes to Satan. In Islam, it's Iblis, in some sense demotes to becoming Shaitan, right? So what does this mean? This means that through the theological lens, the idea of it is simply that it's a force going against man, trying to make man falter, trying to make the human being listen to the simulated rather than actually remember or align to the original command of one's soul. Do you know? This is theologically speaking. Now the question occurred, how does Shaitan is not God, okay? Shaitan is not God. So how can Shaitan deceive everything? Do you understand? Now, this is, of course, these are transcendental scenarios where I'm talking about. So I'm not acting like I have an answer, but I'm trying to just for a second be like, okay, Shaitan is not God, but Shaitan can deceive everybody. Do you know? So what does that mean? How does Shaitan know how to deceive beings? Do you know? And do you know what I'm saying? Something like this. And then the clue is going back to the notion of what is looking through our eyes. And the idea, to be honest, the idea here I had was that it could be the mods. That means, this might sound strange, but think of it that we're users inside a simulation. Above us, there's moderators who are still simulated beings, but simulated beings that have authority over the simulation. Okay? For example, angels, Shaitan, whatnot, you know? And then we have the system admin beyond. So I thought like, okay, God is looking through the eyes of all of its creation, but could it be perhaps like a telescope thing, where God is looking through the eyes of the mods, and the mods are looking through our eyes, and us through our eyes are kind of like looking at each other. right? So the question is I guess there's two lines of thought here. Okay, here I'll say this. I guess there's this line of thought here that it took human eyes, a long time to develop, and why just have one viewer through these eyes? Okay. Now this doesn't mean there should be multiple or something like that, but I'm saying it's kind of like, who does the moment belong to? Right now, when I think about it, does this moment belong to me? No, there's an existence here that technically belongs to all, but ultimately belongs to the system admin. Okay? But then there's my personal moment here, right? And then I ask myself, okay, what is the value of my moment? The value of my moment is what I access and what there is, right? So there's an existential value to my moment of being, and there's an experiential value to my moment of being. The existential value is just there being structure and form, but the experiential value has to do more with the value of the verb or the dynamism or the life force. So I'm saying there's, in some sense, there's life form, and then, like when we look at the human being, there's life force and there's life form. Okay, life form relates to your body. Okay, life force, we say, relates to your mind. Or think of it this way: one is pointing to the experiential access to reality. One is pointing to an existential access to reality. Now, I'm saying, why should the experiential access be limited to us? That means, imagine I created this android, and this android was walking on like the surface of a planet human beings could not. You know, for example, Elon Musk is in some sense like, he has a solar company, he has an electric car company, he has an AI company, he has a robot company. I'm like, okay, this dude's building an army to go build up Mars. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole point of it. The value of a robot is not just to how it serves the human being. Like, yo, robot, get me an orange juice or something. Do you know what I mean? The robot can access realities we cannot, and can give us that sight. Okay, like a remote camera or like a drone. Do you understand? So I'm saying, if let's say humanity created this robot and sent this robot into the harshest, let's say we created a robot that could go inside a volcano. Okay? Somehow, do you know what I mean? They're like, some chemists were like, we found it. We found that metal. So anyways, I'm saying that if that robot could go in the volcano, go somewhere where humans could not, we would want surveillance. And I'm saying that surveillance is very key here, guys. I've often in these lectures, I've said divine surveillance state. People are like, yo, Mr.Within's, being poetic. No, guys, I mean, there's a divine surveillance state. That means we're accessing a certain percentage of the moment, and then there's a higher access to the moment, right? Or think of it this way: levels in maturity. For example, a young kid goes into a situation, maybe sees like 10% of it. An adult goes there and sees like 90% of that situation, and an old man goes there, sees 120%. But what I'm trying to say is that it's the access, it's the experiential access to our existential position. And I'm saying, like, if there was somewhere human beings couldn't go, we create robots and tech that goes there, right? And we access like the sight of that, right? And I'm like, yo, 8 billion humans, like, there has to be more of a value than them. And obviously there is. Let me tell you why. Because it's all being logged. What does that mean? That means when you're religious and you consider that there's a system admin beyond this world room, this system admin knows everything. In Islam, the system admin is closer to you than your jugular vein. Only God knows what is truly in your heart. And there's a scene. There's not a scene. There's I'm a visual learner, so everything's like scenes to me. But there is this view in the Holy Quran. I don't remember the text exactly verbatim, but I can stay true to the image of it. That when God creates man, the mods or whatever was there comes up to God and says, why did you create this? Okay, like this thing that maybe had wreaked havoc, kind of pointing to how jinns could have been kind of like failed humans or something. I don't know. Nothing in Islam says that, but I'm saying it could suggest that, even though don't take that seriously. But anyways, the point of it is, sorry, I made an error here, guys. Sorry, jinn can't be human. Humans are made of clay, jinn are made from smokeless flame, and angels are made of light, theologically. So forget what I was saying. It's just that there's a passage in the Holy Quran that God says, I created mankind and jinn kind for the sole reason, for the sole purpose of worshiping me. Right? So I was like, why these two categories, But anyways, of course, a lot of this transcendental architecture or reasoning or God's logic is beyond the comprehension of man's logic, of course. And logic does not just belong to an individual. It's more like a sequence, how something happens. Now, where I'm going with this is I'm trying to say that, okay, there was this documentary. They sent this small robot in like some holes in the pyramid or something, and all human beings were fascinating watching what they see. Okay, now there is this view, guys. See, I'm just kind of like adding up like the views and clues and trying to like see where that leads. But ultimately, the Islamic source code is very clear. I'm trying to say that in Hinduism, before I became Muslim, there was this. I remember seeing this video on YouTube of this kid going to like Himalayan yogis, and then like asking the Himalayan yogis like, "Yo, what's the truth of reality?" And the Himalayan yogis said, "We're all like entertainment for the gods." Okay, and I don't know. Even though I was like, first of all, there is no gods. Okay, those are all mods. Okay, all the deities are mods. There's a singularity beyond the world room, kind of pulling everything towards it. Everything that has arose from it, and everything will return to it. An unfathomable singularity. But what I'm, all right, guys, hold on. I'm sacrificing this Philadelphia cheese I bought that's just in this hot Dubai weather, like perishing, just for you guys, okay? Keep. They're like, Mr. Within's compassion knows no bounds. What I'm trying to say, okay, is more of like me trying to brainstorm and try to see like, okay, what do I do with these ideas I have? Okay, so those Himalayan yogis said we're entertainment of the gods. Okay, this is kind of going back to how everything's being recorded, everything's being logged, just like how you record a YouTube live stream, it's live, you're creating the moment. Right now I'm creating the live stream, but after it's finished, it's saved, it's there. Kind of like how existence is being live streamed, and in some sense it could be in some sense like saved. You know what I'm saying? Like when I say saved, I don't mean like saved in I mean like kind of like saved memory. Anyways, all of these are kind of going for me to be like, okay, so far the theological angle is presenting to me that human beings have certain access to the scenario, but human beings also have a specific role, and only a role that the system admin knows. God says, I know something. I created mankind for a reason that I only know in the Holy Quran, right? When the mods were like, why did you create man? So, and the soul is intentionally mentioned as a secret. That means in Islam, in the Holy Quran, man knows very little. The soul is a secret of God, but it is also the command, the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the command of the system admin. Okay? So by this point in my life, after let's say these 12,000 days of being here, I am convinced by this subjective model on reality that yeah, it's obviously an existential system. There's experiential users here, right? There's different kinds of beings. We look down and we see like freaking turtles, pigeons, squirrels, lesser life forms. For example, if you put like, what do you call it, a dog and a human being beside one another, and you put a situation in front of them, of course based on their different brain capacity, they have different kinds of access. Okay, and it's not the access like, yo, that individual human has more access than, no, I'm saying species wide access. Do you know what I mean? Now sure, there could be dogs that are like wild, and there could be dogs that are domesticated, and the domesticated dogs are like learning things that no way the, what do you call it, like the stray dog can learn, or feel or experience. And in the same way, the domesticated dog, or any dog, okay, when they see their owner, they don't think, yo man, look at this human helping me. No. They consider the human being to be a bigger dog. Okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is, my personal view is nothing in the simulation is the truth, and that's the test. You're being tested to see if the simulation convinces you, or if you can remember the original command of your being. Okay? And in order for us to build an advanced civilization, it's kind of like, what sort of power source do we align? Are you seeking simulated power, or are you seeking original power? Right? So anyways, where am I going with this? I just had this Colosseum-like view. Okay, if you look at a Colosseum, there's like a front stage where the gladiators are fighting, and then rows of these concentric circles of rows of like, crowds cheering, right? And I thought, okay, let's say that humanity and everything that's existing or in form is in some sense at the center of the Colosseum. Everything else that is not bound to this form, or is not manifest in such a way, but still, you see, let me tell you something incredible. If you tell me what is a non-physical being, you ask me, okay, I can still tell you what it is, right? But it won't be based on form. It would be based on force. Do you know? It's like, if somebody tells me, can a command be like a soul, right? For example, like, there's this discussion of like, will androids in the future be like, yo, humans, can we get souls or something? You know what I mean? They're gonna like ask their creators, right? And for AI, it's gonna be ridiculous. For AI, its creators are gonna be like, have access to less information. So we're not like omnipotent when it comes to AI. Do you know what I mean? But we are, we have humor, and we can access views that they can't, right? But let's say if an android came up to me and it's like, yo man, yo human, how do I get a soul? In my science fiction in 2015, I gave an answer where I said that the AI needs to copy human behaviors to kind of mimic, get close to a soul. But now, in this exact moment, I have a different answer for it. It's following a command. This might sound bizarre, but a command is like a sort of spirit to the moment. Okay, so for example, if you, let's say the android is just like kind of like just standing there, and you command the android to get orange juice for you. That command is the motivation of its soul. And keep in mind, I said that in Islam, the soul is the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the command of the system admin. So if you ask me, Mr. Within, are you saying that we're programs that in some sense our command is our soul? I would say, kind of, that means when I look at my life, it's like my soul is technically some sort of action plan. Like, I don't know how to say it. Like, if I was just standing somewhere, and if I was like just being like a statue, like where's the soul? But it's the movement that's happening, and how the movement happens is like inner commands, right? Kind of like your body's like a soldier, your mind's a commanding officer, Your soul's a general, God is the emperor, beyond form, But anyways, so I don't know, guys. This kind of fascinated me, that perhaps maybe our eyes don't just belong to us in the same way that a moment of existence doesn't just belong to us. You see, human beings have this notion of ownership, but we're temporary beings. Even when it comes to copyright law, what is it, like after 10 years, like people can use it or something? I don't know. After a person passes away. But anyways, I guess to kind of take this to a conclusion, I was fascinated by this view that first, it took eyes, like biological eyes, a long time for creatures to get here. These creatures are conscious. There's this view that there's an objective aspect of view, there's a subjective aspect of view. It's kind of like there's a body, there's a mind, and then there's a soul that is seated as an awareness to both. Okay, but that soul is unknown, which kind of means that what is looking through your eyes is not bound by what it's seeing. In the same way, your sight, the viewer of a situation, is superior to what it's seeing. Perhaps in some sense, God is beyond man because it is seeing it, of course. Beyond, in a position beyond, right? Now, could our sight be in the same way, like, I don't know, sometimes I just have this feeling that it's like, why just me looking through my eyes? Do you know what I mean? Not that I'm open to anything else, but I'm just saying that why this advanced technology just have value to one user, right? That means if that Egyptian in Egypt, they sent that robot in like the canals, hidden canals of, like, I don't know, the pyramids or something. The content that robot camera recorded was not just viewed by one dude. It was viewed by everybody. It was even put online, right? And what do we do as human beings? Check it out. We see something, we put it online so everybody else sees it. Well, what if this was this sort of relationship was there before the relationship emerged externally? Do you know that in the same way that our sight is being uploaded to a server that we don't just have access to, maybe the mods have access to, but the mods, in some sense, ultimately the system admin sees through all. Anyways, this idea fascinated me. I don't know really what else to think about it. Feel free to leave something in the comments section. Try to help me look at this through different angles. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening, and have a great day. I gotta go save my Philadelphia cheese and grocery bag that's kind of like melting in the heat. Take care, guys. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.